Some stories refuse to be forgotten. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is one such story. In the heart of Russia's Ural Mountains, something terrible happened in the winter of 1959. 9 experienced hikers ventured into the wilderness and never returned. Their tent was discovered sliced open from the inside. The hikers were found scattered across the snow-covered slope, inadequately dressed for the brutal sub-zero temperatures. What could have compelled these seasoned mountaineers to flee their shelter in such a panicked manner? The incident took place during a secretive period of Soviet history, adding another layer of intrigue. Over the decades, the story has transformed from a local tragedy into a global phenomenon. This introduction will set the stage, taking you back to that fateful winter and introducing the people at the center of this enduring, frozen mystery. To understand the mystery, we must first understand the people. They were students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnical Institute, accomplished grade 2 hikers. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, a skilled and respected engineering student. The group was a tight-knit circle of friends bound by a shared passion for the outdoors. Initially, there were 10 hikers. Yuri Yudin, a student, was forced to turn back early due to severe sciatic nerve pain, making him the sole survivor. His departure marked the last point at which the group was seen alive and well by an outsider. The final member was Semyon Zolotaryov, a 38-year-old Second World War veteran and tour guide. His inclusion added an unknown variable to an otherwise familiar and cohesive team. Was he simply a fellow adventurer, or was there another reason for his presence on that desolate mountain slope? The group's destination was Otorten, a mountain in the far north of the Sverdlovsk Oblast. The hikers were not superstitious. For them, this was a challenging route. Their planned route was ambitious, covering over 300 kilometers on skis through treacherous terrain. They meticulously documented their preparations and the early stages of their journey in diaries and photographs. The plan was for Igor Dyatlov to send a telegram to their sports club from Vizhai on or around the 12th of February. When the 12th came and went with no word, no one was immediately alarmed. But as the days turned into a week, unease grew. The group had vanished into the vast white emptiness of the Ural winter. On the 20th of February, the Institute initiated a search and rescue operation. They had no idea they were about to stumble upon one of the most perplexing and terrifying scenes in the history of mountaineering. Every great expedition has a clear starting point, a final line between civilization and the wild. For the Dyatlov group, this line was the small logging settlement of Vizhai. They arrived there by train and truck on the 26th of January, 1959. The group was in high spirits, buzzing with anticipation. They bought provisions and spent the night in a local guest house. The local people of Vizhai would later recall the group as being confident and well-equipped. On the 27th of January, the group prepared to leave Vizhai. They loaded their gear onto a truck, which a local man had agreed to drive for the first leg of their journey. As they clambered aboard the truck, waving goodbye to the small settlement, their adventure truly began. They were leaving the last vestiges of safety and communication behind them. The journey from Vizhai to Sector 41 was not a comfortable one. The group huddled together for warmth in the back of the rattling truck. Yuri Yudin, suffering from pre-existing health issues, found his ailments flaring up. It became clear he would not be able to continue with the ski trek. Upon reaching Sector 41, Yuri Yudin made his final decision to turn back. It was an emotional farewell. He embraced his friends, wishing them luck and a safe return. He watched as his 9 companions set off into the snow-laden forest. This chance event made Yuri Yudin the sole survivor of the Dyatlov group. His departure marks a crucial, poignant moment in the story, a final separation between the world of the living and the 9 who walked on towards the mountain of the dead. On January 28th, the 9-strong group began their ski trek, following the Lozva River through pristine wilderness. Diaries and photos show them working together, setting up camp and enjoying the challenge. They built a snow shelter for supplies, planning to return. Everything was going according to plan, spirits high, the team healthy, and ready to tackle the mountain ahead. The final diary entry, dated January 31st, is filled with hope. The group had reached the highlands, built their cache, and looked forward to the next stage. But after this, the diary falls silent. On February 1st, they made camp on a bleak, exposed slope of Kholat Syakhl. That night, something happened that drove them out into the deadly cold. The last photograph shows the hikers setting up camp on the exposed, snowy slope of Kholat Syakhl. They worked together, using skis to anchor their tent against the Arctic wind, unaware this would be their final night. The location was dangerously open, far from the safety of the tree line, with a blizzard approaching. Sometime during the night, something went catastrophically wrong. The group slashed their tent open and fled into the freezing darkness, leaving the mystery of what terrified them unsolved. The Dyatlov group was due to send word by February 12th. Days passed with no telegram. At first, no one worried. Delays were common in the harsh Russian winter. But as silence stretched on, anxiety grew. Families demanded a search. Volunteers and officials scoured the mountains but found nothing. The hope of rescue faded, replaced by dread. What had happened to them? After days of searching, rescuers spotted a collapsed tent on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl. The Dyatlov group's tent was damaged and nearly buried in snow. It had been slashed open from the inside. Belongings and warm clothes were left behind, as if the group fled suddenly. Footprints led away, some barefoot, toward the forest. The abandoned tent marked the start of a chilling mystery. The search party followed faint footprints from the tent to the forest, where they made a chilling discovery under a Siberian pine. 2 bodies, stripped to their underwear, lay in the snow, barefoot, frozen and desperate. Broken branches suggested a frantic climb, and a small fire hinted at a struggle for survival. Nearby, the bodies of Dyatlov and Kolmogorova were found, both frozen while trying to return to camp. 5 hikers remained missing. The search pressed on. A few days later, on the 5th of March, the search party located the 5th body. Rustem Slobodin was found between the positions of Dyatlov and Kolmogorova, buried under about 15 centimeters of snow. He was also on the line leading back towards the tent, and like the others, he was insufficiently dressed for the conditions. He was wearing felt boots, Valenki on his feet, but they were on different legs, suggesting he had put them on in a great hurry. An initial examination at the scene suggested he too had died of hypothermia, just like the other 4. The search for the remaining 4 hikers, however, proved to be far more difficult. Despite extensive searching by ground teams and aerial reconnaissance, there was no trace of the other 4 members of the group: Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolovatov, Nicholas Thibault Brignol, and Semyon Zolotaryov. The snow on the mountain was deep, in some places several meters thick. The search teams probed the snow with long metal rods, hoping to strike something, but found nothing. The weather continued to be harsh, hampering their efforts. As the weeks turned into months, the initial frantic search slowed down. It became clear that the remaining bodies were likely buried deep under the winter snowpack and would not be found until the spring thaw began to melt the ice. For the families, this was a period of agonizing waiting. They knew their loved ones were gone, but the inability to find their bodies and give them a proper burial prolonged their grief. The official investigation was also in a state of limbo. Without the remaining bodies, the medical examiners could not complete their work, and the investigators could not form a complete picture of what had happened that night. The mystery deepened. Where had the other four gone? Why had they separated from the group that stayed near the pine tree and the ones who tried to return to the tent? The lack of answers only fueled speculation and rumor back in Sverdlovsk. The spring melt finally arrived in early May. The snow began to recede, revealing the landscape that had been hidden for months. The search teams returned to the area with renewed purpose. They focused their efforts on a ravine located about 75 meters away from the pine tree where the first two bodies had been found. It was a natural depression in the landscape, a place where deep snow would have accumulated. It was here, after more than 2 months of searching, that they would finally uncover the last and most disturbing chapter of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. The discoveries they were about to make would change the entire nature of the investigation. On May 4th, the last four hikers were found buried in a snowy ravine, huddled together in a makeshift den. Unlike the others, they wore more clothing, some taken from their fallen friends. But their bodies showed catastrophic internal injuries, with almost no external wounds. As if crushed by immense force, strange radiation on their clothes and missing body parts deepened the mystery, leaving investigators baffled. The 1959 investigation into the 9 hikers' deaths was brief and unsatisfying. Prosecutor Lev Ivanov faced bizarre evidence: a tent cut from the inside, experienced hikers fleeing into lethal cold, and mysterious injuries. The official verdict? A compelling natural force. Files were sealed, fueling suspicion. Decades later, Ivanov admitted pressure to close the case and hinted at secret weapons tests. The truth, it seems, was buried in the snow. For many years, the most widely accepted rational explanation for the incident has been, well, an avalanche. This theory suggests that a slab of snow, a specific type of avalanche that's more like a solid block sliding downhill, struck the tent during the night. The impact wouldn't have been large enough to bury the tent completely, but it could have been forceful enough to cause panic and injury. The weight of the snow piling onto the tent might have blocked the entrance, forcing the terrified hikers to slash their way out through the side. The crushing chest and head injuries found on Dubinina, Zolotaryov, and Thibaut Brignol could be explained by the immense pressure of the snow slab. This theory provides a logical sequence of events. The initial impact of the snow causes panic and some serious injuries. The hikers, some already wounded and all disoriented in the pitch-black chaos, cut their way out. Fearing a second larger avalanche, they make a collective decision to retreat to the perceived safety of the tree line below. They move in an orderly fashion, helping their injured friends. This explains why they left their gear behind. Their priority was to escape an immediate and life-threatening danger. Once at the tree line, in the brutal cold and darkness, hypothermia began to set in, leading to confusion and the final tragic separation of the group. However, the avalanche theory has significant problems that critics are quick to point out. The slope where the tent was pitched was not particularly steep, only about 15 degrees, which is generally not considered prime avalanche territory. Furthermore, investigators who arrived at the scene just 3 weeks later found no obvious signs of an avalanche. The tent was still partially standing, and the group's skis, used as poles, were still upright next to it. A powerful snowslide would likely have swept everything away. The footprints leading from the tent were also orderly, not the kind of scattered tracks you'd expect from a panicked flight. In 2021, a new scientific study from researchers in Switzerland added weight back to the avalanche hypothesis. Using advanced computer modeling, including animation techniques from the film Frozen, they argued that a specific combination of factors could have led to a delayed slab avalanche. They proposed that the hikers cutting into the snowpack to pitch their tent, combined with strong katabatic winds and a layer of weak snow, could have created the perfect conditions for a slide to occur hours later. This model suggests a smaller, localized slide could have happened, explaining both the injuries and the lack of widespread avalanche evidence. It remains the leading scientific theory, though it still doesn't satisfy everyone. Bye. During the Cold War, the Ural Mountains were home to secret Soviet military facilities and weapons tests. Some believe the Dyatlov hikers stumbled into a restricted zone, witnessing a weapons test or explosion, explaining the strange lights, radioactivity, and severe injuries. Yet no blast evidence or debris was ever found, and the chaotic scene left behind doesn't fit a military cover-up. The mystery remains unsolved. One of the more scientific yet still exotic theories revolves around a natural phenomenon known as infrasound. Infrasound is low-frequency sound, below the range of human hearing, which can be generated by certain wind conditions, such as air moving over a specific landscape formation. This phenomenon, called a Kármán vortex street, could have occurred as wind blew over the summit of Kholat-Syakhl. While the sound itself is inaudible, exposure to intense infrasound can have profound physiological and psychological effects on humans. It has been known to induce feelings of intense, irrational fear, panic, nausea, and breathlessness. This could explain the hikers' sudden, inexplicable terror. The infrasound theory proposes that the hikers were subjected to this unnerving phenomenon while in their tent. Gripped by a sudden, overwhelming, and seemingly reasonless panic, they felt an urgent need to escape their enclosed space. This would explain why they cut their way out of the tent and fled without stopping to gather their essential gear. Their flight was not a response to a visible threat, but to an internal feeling of pure horror. Once outside in the blizzard, their fate was sealed by hypothermia. This theory elegantly explains the initial baffling decision to abandon the tent, which is the starting point of the entire tragedy. However, like other theories, infrasound does not provide a complete answer. Most importantly, it fails to explain the catastrophic physical injuries sustained by the 4 hikers found in the ravine. A feeling of panic, no matter how intense, cannot fracture a person's skull or crush their rib cage. While some argue they could have sustained these injuries by falling into the ravine, the medical examiner was adamant that the force required was far greater than that of a simple fall. The theory also relies on a specific and rare meteorological event for which there is no direct evidence, making it highly speculative and difficult to prove. Another set of theories focuses on a more mundane but equally tragic human element: conflict. Could an argument within the group have escalated to violence? Perhaps there was a dispute that led to some members being forcibly driven from the tent. This seems highly unlikely, given that they were a close-knit group of experienced mountaineers who relied on each other for survival. The diaries and photos show no signs of discord. A more compelling version of this theory involves outsiders. Some have speculated that the hikers were attacked by escaped prisoners from a nearby gulag, or even by the Mansi people, although the latter were quickly cleared by the initial investigation. The lack of any footprints other than the hikers makes any theory involving other people extremely problematic. When conventional explanations fail to satisfy, human imagination often turns to the extraordinary. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is no exception, and over the years it has become a magnet for a wide range of paranormal and fringe theories. One of the most enduring is the idea that the hikers were attacked by a cryptid, a creature unknown to science. The Yeti or Russian Menk is often mentioned. This theory attempts to explain the immense force that caused the injuries, suggesting a creature of superhuman strength was responsible. The humorous mention of snowmen in the hiker's satirical leaflet is often pointed to with grim irony as a strange premonition. This explanation, while popular in some circles, has absolutely no physical evidence to support it. No non-human tracks were ever found at the scene, no animal hairs or other biological traces were recovered. Furthermore, the behavior of the hikers does not align well with an animal attack. They walked rather than ran from the tent, and an attacking creature would likely have left more obvious external wounds such as claw marks or bites. The Yeti theory, while a compelling narrative for a horror story, remains firmly in the realm of folklore. It is a testament to the human desire for a tangible monster when faced with an inexplicable and terrifying event. Another popular exotic theory involves extraterrestrial activity. The sightings of glowing orange spheres in the sky around the time of the incident are often interpreted not as military tests, but as UFOs. Proponents of this theory suggest the hikers either witnessed something they should not have or were directly attacked by an alien entity. The strange radioactivity and the crushing internal injuries are sometimes cited as evidence of advanced, non-human technology. This narrative transforms the tragedy from a terrestrial mystery into a cosmic one, placing the hikers at the center of a close encounter of the most terrifying kind. Like the Yeti theory, however, it is pure speculation, lacking any verifiable proof. Ultimately, after more than 60 years, every single theory, from the scientific to the supernatural, remains flawed. Each one can explain certain pieces of the puzzle, but none can satisfactorily explain all of them at once. The Avalanche theory explains the injuries, but not the scene at the tent. The military theory explains the secrecy, but not the lack of physical evidence. Infrasound explains the panic, but not the trauma. This is the enduring power of the Dyatlov Pass mystery. It is a perfect storm of contradictory clues and unanswered questions. The truth of what happened on that mountain in 1959 may have died with the 9 hikers, leaving us with a chilling story that resists all easy answers. For 60 years, the Dyatlov Pass case was closed, but never forgotten. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the investigation, promising answers. Hopes were high, but the inquiry focused only on natural causes. In 2020, officials blamed an avalanche, closing the case once more. For many, the mystery endures, unsolved and unforgettable. The Dyatlov Pass incident is more than just an unsolved case in Russia. It's a national campfire story, a scar on the Russian psyche. 9 young hikers, symbols of hope, met a mysterious end in the wild Ural mountains, a place of myth and legend. Their tragedy became a modern legend, immortalized in books, films and memory, a wound that never fully heals. The fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 was the first event that truly globalized the Dyatlov Pass mystery. Case files that had been classified for decades became accessible to researchers. This released a flood of original documents, including the investigators' reports, autopsy findings, and the hikers' own diaries and photographs. But it was the rise of the internet in the 2000s that transformed the case from a Russian curiosity into a worldwide obsession. Suddenly, anyone with a computer could access translated documents, study the crime scene photos, and debate the evidence with fellow enthusiasts from across the globe. The mystery had found a new and powerful home online. Websites, forums, and podcasts dedicated to the incident have created a vast, collaborative community of amateur detectives. These online sleuths pore over every single detail of the case. They scrutinize the hikers' last photographs for hidden clues. They debate the meaning of cryptic diary entries. They create complex timelines and maps, and they propose new theories, some brilliant and some bizarre. This digital hive mind has unearthed new information and challenged old assumptions. For instance, detailed analysis of the photos has helped to more accurately pinpoint the location of the final camp. The internet has kept the investigation alive in a way the official authorities never could. This digital fascination has also led to a new wave of physical exploration. Inspired by the online discussions, adventurers and documentary makers from around the world now make pilgrimages to Dyatlov Pass. They travel to the remote location in winter to experience the conditions for themselves, hoping to gain some insight that can only be found on the ground. These modern expeditions have produced a wealth of new footage and analysis. They have tested theories such as the viability of the avalanche hypothesis by camping in the same area and observing the weather patterns. While no expedition has solved the mystery, they have all added to the rich, complex tapestry of the story. However, the internet has also been a breeding ground for misinformation. With no official body to verify facts, wild speculation and unfounded rumors can spread like wildfire. Theories involving aliens, government conspiracies, and supernatural monsters are given the same platform as more sober scientific analyses. The line between fact and fiction can become blurred, and the real human tragedy at the heart of the story can sometimes be lost in the noise of online debate. The digital age has democratized the investigation, but it has also made the search for a single, verifiable truth more complex and chaotic than ever before. The mystery is now an open-source puzzle being worked on by thousands with no one in charge. More than 60 years after 9 hikers perished on Syakhl, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains a chilling mystery. Despite modern science and countless theories, no explanation fits all the evidence. Why did they flee their tent into a blizzard? What terrified them so deeply? The truth may be forever lost to the wind and ice of the silent mountain, leaving only echoes and unanswered questions behind. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains a haunting mystery. 9 young hikers vanished into the Ural winter, leaving only chilling clues and unanswered questions. Their journey ended in tragedy, their story echoing through decades of speculation and sorrow. The winds across Syakhl still carry their memory, a reminder that some mysteries endure and some questions may never be answered.